Hello and welcome to the Wildcard Rewind. The season may be over, but there is still plenty to talk about. For the next few weeks, we will be diving into each division around the league. And this week, we are heading to the NFC North, where we will have a very special guest on to talk some Green Bay Packers. But first of all, let's hit rewind.
I just want to rewind to when we were young and hard. Back to all those good times. Take me back to the start.
Oh, it's that time of the week, isn't it? It's that time of the week. Here we are again. I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts. Mags, how are you doing this week, mate?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. As I didn't mention on the show, I'm off work tomorrow. I never mentioned that pre-show at all. So yeah, I'm feeling absolutely fantastic already. Just feeling good, enjoying. Really looking forward to reviewing the teams in this division, one of the most interesting divisions in the league. So yeah, can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Hannah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. I feel like I've reached the pinnacle of my podcasting career because I have developed a decent background. So I feel like I've reached the top of the mountain, right? I just need to get a signed jersey and that's me complete. But otherwise, I'm really good. Looking forward to chatting through this division. Hopefully it's going to be a bit better than last week when we basically said everyone needs a QB. So hopefully this week we'll talk a bit different.
Yeah. And that brings us on to our guest. And I believe it's our first non-wildcard member because we've only had the Dynasty lads on. So we give a big warm welcome to Liam, or at the FSA Tweets from the 5 Yard Dynasty. Liam, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Paul. I mean, no one's asked you how you are, so I'll ask you at the end. But I've got to talk about myself for a second. It's all good. It's all good. Ready to talk about Packers. I don't get to do it often enough, as Paul absolutely hates me saying anything about the Packers, and he's in most of the group chats that I'm in anyway. So Paul's like the Packers police, but here we are. Paul, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really well, mate. I'm doing really well. I'm so glad to get you on, so you can actually talk about the Packers, because apparently I just follow you and just tell you that you talk about the Packers a lot. But no, you mate, you must be thinking we're actually a little bit weird at the moment because you've watched us do our pre-show ritual and then the song came on and we danced, and you must be thinking, oh my God, they are a little bit mental. But
I saw the pre-game ritual. I wasn't on board with it, but you guys can do whatever you want. As a guest, I can't actually see you guys dancing to your own music, so you put yourselves in the crap there a little bit. I can't see anything. I just see myself and the screen. So,
no, we have.
I want to see these dances. Come on,
we've definitely mentioned on the show that we do dance, and I think Mag said he was going to record it. I think you said you were going to record it and put it out there.
I have some recordings, but why don't if you're listening to this, go follow us on Twitter. If we get to like a thousand followers on Twitter, I'll put out the good time about that.
We'll do it live. It live. 1,000 followers, we will genuinely do it live. But
either way, mate, send them over to me. Send those videos. I need to see them regardless.
Oh well. Yeah.
No, you don't need to see them. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So Liam, let's talk a bit of Packers with you. Your Green Bay Packers finishing the season at 8-9. Bit of a tough season for you guys, not making the playoffs. I feel that's a really big blow for the Packers, and I don't know why, but it just seems like it's a massive blow for you guys to not make the playoffs. What went wrong for them this season? You know, can we put all the blame on Aaron Rodgers, or what do you think?
We can put a good portion of that blame onto him, but it's definitely not the full story. I mean, when you say it's a big blow to the Packers, being average is a big blow. I mean, we've made the playoffs most of the past 2 decades, so it's quite difficult to say to a Packers fan base that has seen 30 years of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, to basically say we're going to be average and that's all you're going to get for the entire season. It's a very hard sell. So when you put it like that, yes, it is a big blow, but you've seen Aaron Rodgers be the MVP for the past 2 seasons. We've had 3 13-win seasons in a row with a new coach, Matt LaFleur. The last time we didn't meet or get into the playoffs was Mike McCarthy era. It was his last season. So we see all of these things, and that's why it's such a massive blow for us to go 8-9 and have a losing record, be average in basically every possible metric I found was we were just average or worse. That's why it's such a massive blow, because we're just used to that success. And I'm not trying to be big-headed, but yeah, it's a tough one to swallow when it's like the New England Patriots going from 6 Super Bowl wins with Tom Brady down to whatever they are now.
Yeah, but except we're never as good as the Patriots, right?
Oh no,
like it's not really like that. Like you won 1 Super Bowl. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, Liam.
But we had 30 years of like impressive QB play.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said, it does seem weird them not making the playoffs, and it doesn't feel right with the Packers not making the playoffs. But no,
you can tell me that again, Paul. I like hearing it.
Oh, mate, I like to give you some abuse. I really do. But we're talking real now, Liam. We're talking real. Hannah, what do you think of the Packers season?
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say other than disappointing, really? Like Liam says, the franchise is used to getting in the playoffs. Like, I would feel sorry for you guys had I not supported a terrible team for many, many years. But no, I totally get it. They are used to going to the playoffs. You've got Aaron Rodgers at QB. He's been the MVP 2 seasons in a row. Like, I don't think you were necessarily expecting the drop-off that you had. So I do think that, surprisingly or not, like the loss of Davante Adams was a massive thing. Like that connection between Rodgers and Adams, I actually don't think you can like get that easily with any other, wide receivers. And it showed. I think the other problem is obviously their main wide receivers, apart from Alan Lazard, were rookies. So they were still very young and new to the league. So that didn't help things either. So I just think that it was probably a multitude of things. It wasn't just Rodgers, but obviously we know he played with a broken thumb, which I suspect probably didn't help him either. But just nobody seemed on the same page to me. Like this season, I think we talked about it most of the time, like Rodgers and Tom Brady, neither of them looked happy the whole season. They just always looked unhappy, mad, angry at the teammates. They just never seemed to be kind of in sync with anyone. And I think that was the story kind of really. And that defense just wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be either. I don't know what kind of you think there, Liam, on that. I mean, I guess my question to you would be, do you think if the Packers could take that trade back, do you think they would?
No, I don't think they would, because they offered the same amount of money to Adams, and Adams still chose to leave. I don't think Adams would have played or would have made it very difficult on the Packers through the entire offseason if they didn't make that trade. So I don't think they regret it whatsoever. I think you hit the nail on the head with everything you said. The defense didn't stand up to what you expected them to be. The talent on paper was great, but the talent that actually showed up wasn't. I mean, we had talks of Darnell Savage. I mean, he even got benched at one point, but people were expecting Darnell Savage to take a step up in this year, and instead he actually took a step back before starting to regain his footing. And there's talks of Adrian Amos, the other safety, that took a step back as well this year. Devondre Campbell, Russell Douglas, both guys that we signed to a massive extension, or not massive, big extensions, because they played so well last year as free agent pickups, didn't do as well as last year, which was quite frankly really difficult because they were all pros and pro bowlers. So that combined with a lot of other things going on, like we expected Devontae Wyatt, our first round rookie D lineman, to do a lot more, but he actually came in as the 5th D lineman on our depth chart to start the season. He started to do well at the end of the season. I mean, we also went through injuries, as did every team, but Rashawn Gary, our top star pass rusher as an edge, decided like he decided to do it, but he tore his ACL, so he missed over half of the season with that. Going back to the wide receivers you mentioned as well, Hannah, you've got all of our wide receivers got injured at some point and missed multiple games. I'm not making that up. Every single one of them did miss multiple games. And I'm not just talking about receivers in the sense of wide receivers, but tight ends. You look at Tonyan, or Tunyon, however you want to say it. He was our only reliable tight end as a pass catching option, and he got injured for a good portion of the season. Lazard, Christian Watson, and Romeo Dobbs all got injured as well and missed, I think it was 4 or 5 games each, if not more than that. You also had Aaron Jones get injured and miss a few games. AJ Dillon missed 1 game, I believe, but he didn't really contribute to that passing game. So, yeah, there's a lot there, and every team has injuries, and you've got to get past them. But yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, you have, to be fair. Mags, have you got anything to add to the Packers season before we move on to what they need to do to rebuild?
In terms of what they did well, I mean, I thought Christian Watson looked pretty strong down the stretch. So I think that's a real highlight that you can really point to. He seems to be getting more comfortable in the NFL, and he's a guy that, the more we look into doing this series and taking notes on teams, the more important it seems to be that you need to have players that scare the other team. And Christian Watson is a player that will scare the other team because he's so explosive. He's so, has that big playability. So I think that's pretty good for them. I mean, who knows? We'll probably get on to Aaron Rodgers in the next little segment about improvement. But I mean, Jordan Love came out in that last game he played, and he looked, the best I've ever seen Jordan Love. So they do have that. Whatever happens to Rodgers, they have Love, who looks more NFL ready than perhaps a lot of people thought he might. So those are some of the positives that I would say. But yeah, for a team that just missed out in the playoffs, there's a lot more negatives than positives. But I think you're right, Liam. That's because Packers fans expect a lot more big things to come from them.
Yeah, let's look at it in a term of a team that's in that division. You think the Packers just missed the playoffs, and that's a really bad season for them. But the Lions just missed the playoffs, and that's a phenomenal season for them. It's too. We're going to talk about the Lions later, and there's a lot of positives about them. We're talking about the Packers that basically had the same season, and all we're doing is talking about negatives.
Yeah.
But we're going to get on to what we think the Packers need to do. But before we're going to do that, Liam, I'm going to hit you with the question that's on everyone's lips right now, and is Aaron Rodgers your QB next season? And if he's not, is Jordan Love your future?
I mean, I don't have Aaron Rodgers' phone number. If that's what you're asking, I have no idea what he's going to do. I don't think anyone.
Okay. In your personal opinion, then.
Personal opinion, I don't know I don't have an opinion in terms of I think he's going to do this. All I can say is, if the Packers move on from him, I wouldn't be surprised and I wouldn't mind it. Yes, he was a back-to-back winning MVP over the past 2 seasons before 2022. But if we move on from him, it's a good time to move on from him. It's better to do it now than in 2 years' time. If he is falling off now, I wouldn't want to do it in 2 seasons' time when the contract ends and we don't get anything back for him. So in terms of that, brilliant. But if he stays, then it's almost like there's not a losing scenario for me in this situation. I think Love is a good player. The hate with Love has gone too far from Packers fandom, which is hating on the pick, not the player. But they can't split the two. And I think Love yeah, I think Love can be what the franchise needs. Not saying that he's going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, but he's got the hallmarks of being a good starting quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I just wondered if you thought Aaron Rodgers, or if you'd maybe got feelers from Packers fans on what they sort of wanted and stuff. But what else?
Nearly a 50-50 split, mate. Honestly, on Packers
Yeah.
Twitter, it's 50-50. So there's a large portion that want to keep him. There's a large portion that wouldn't be opposed to seeing him go to the Jets for a first and a second, or two firsts.
I think that would be a very good trade for Green Bay, to be honest. But what in terms of the Packers as a team now, what do you think they need to do this offseason to help build other areas? You know, are you quite happy going into this season with your group of wide receivers, with Aaron Jones and Dylan as a 1A, 1B, or is there things that you'd like to see change to improve both sides of the ball, the offense and the defense? You know,
I mean, defensively, the biggest thing that I wanted to see was Joe Barry, or move on from Joe Barry and get a new DC. That hasn't happened. If that was going to happen, it would have happened straight after the season, and it didn't. So that's a big thing that it just isn't going to happen now. I think we need Quay Walker to stop losing his head. That happened a few times during the season. If he stops losing his head, then I think that he's got a great future in terms of being a linebacker for the Packers. We need our corners to stay healthy. I mean, Eric Stokes is coming back from injury. We had Russell Douglas out for a few games, Jair out for a few games. And safeties, we just need safety help in general. We haven't got many safeties left in terms of coming up on contracts that we can afford. So I think one of the major things in the first two rounds will be safety help in the draft. Over on the offense, we need to make decisions on the offensive line because that was shaky. There was too much movement there during the season. So I think we need to get back on track. I mean, Elton Jenkins came back, and David Bakhtiari came back, and they, by the end of the season, looked like former selves. So if they keep that up, I think we'll be solid. But until that is proven, I can expect another lineman to come in or two. And then wide receivers, we're looking to get out. I've seen reports of Alan Lazard potentially coming back. So that's something. I know that he's asking for more money than the Packers are probably going to want to give him. But if he does come back, I'm not opposed to that. He's a great blocker. He is trusted by Rodgers. I would still expect a top wide receiver to come in. Hopefully not the third round, because our third round picks haven't been too good over the past few years. It's become like a dead zone for us. Anyone we're picking the third isn't going to do well. But hopefully we'll get another second rounder or even a first round wide receiver. And they can be the 1A to Christian Watson's 1B.
Yeah, I agree. I look forward to see what they do. Hannah, do you agree, or is there anything you'd like to see different being done?
No, I think Liam has kind of hit the nail on the head there, really, on what we kind of what they can need to look to do. I think a lot of obviously what they end up doing is going to depend on who plays QB, right? So until that kind of domino falls, it's difficult to kind of say exactly what they're going to do. But yeah, I mean, generally, there's pieces they certainly need to sort out, like Liam said. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting off-season.
It is. It's going to be a big one. Mags, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's two different teams, I think, at the start of game one next season. If Aaron Rodgers stays, then you maybe look to get more weapons around him and you build around that. Like I think pick 15 in the first round, that is right around that sweet spot where you might have like a Jackson Smith and Jigba like kind of player still lingering there, which would be awesome to see with Aaron Rodgers like linking up with somebody like that. But it's just not the Packers style. I think if Rodgers does move on, I would be wondering if the organization is tempted then just to get a whole lot younger and just build around like start again, like move on from people like Bakhtiari and those kind of guys, and just go, you know what, we're going to get a whole lot younger. We might trade him away, free up some cap space, and start building around a strong offensive line and see what Jordan Love has got, and kind of reboot and start again. But it depends, because the Packers, from my eye, Liam, you'll be able to answer a lot better. They don't have a lot of really good young players from what I can see. They've got like solid veterans, but then you're paying Aaron Rodgers quite a lot of money, so it's kind of hard to build around that sometimes as well.
Yeah, you're right. The one thing I will say about David Bakhtiari is we only saved $5 million by cutting him this year. And you're not going to replace David Bakhtiari with how he played at the end of the season with $5 million. We do have Josh Nyman as the left tackle, he moved to right tackle partway through the season as well. So he could step in, and that's a good move. If we did want to get younger, I just can't see a reason why we'd move on from Bakhtiari without trading him. But other than that, we are a team full of veterans. We were a good young team a few years ago with Jair still on a rookie deal, Kenny Clark still on a rookie deal, Elton Jenkins still on a rookie deal, and it was a good young team. And now we're at that stage where we've had to pay them, and it's slowly coming, not undone, but we're having to structure the team a bit of a different way. And I mean, we're expecting some extensions and restructures to come in over the next few days, because of, I think Aaron Jones definitely got restructured, and I believe Jair also got restructured. So that frees up a bit of cap. We need to do this regardless of whether Aaron Rodgers stays or goes, but I'm kind of expecting something to be done with Kenny Clark and maybe Elton Jenkins as well.
Yeah, I agree. But before we move on, we're going to make some predictions. So we did this, you guys did this last week, but we're going to do it again this week and for the rest of them. So, Liam, 2 simple questions. Do you think the Packers improve their record? And who do you think the Packers MVP will be next season?
I think it's very difficult for any fan of their team to say no to that question, Paul. So, yes, I think the Packers will be...
No, I don't. I could say it really easily.
I said very difficult in terms of if they don't have a quarterback that is maybe missing their entire season.
Yeah.
I think Packers will improve. I'd say 12 wins if Rodgers stays. If not, I could probably see a 9-10 win season or a very similar season with Jordan Love. Just because you have no idea what Jordan Love's going to be like. He could take them a lot further. It could also be completely bad, but I kind of expect the same to be with this. And the MVP question is quite difficult because you could pick Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers not be there in 2 weeks' time, let alone at the start of the season. So if Rodgers is there, I've got to say Rodgers. You can't go otherwise. If not, I'm actually going to go defense and go Jair, and I think he's going to have a great bounce back year and become that island that everyone thought he was a few years ago and referred to him as.
Love it. Hannah, the same questions to you.
Yeah, like Liam said, this is quite a tough question, I think, because obviously we don't actually ultimately know who the QB is going to be. But I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here, and I'm going to say that I think Rodgers is going to move on. So I'm going to say that potentially I think they might get a little bit worse this season with Love in his first season. I'm not saying it's going to be bad forever, but I think, there'll be some teething problems in the transition. So I'm going to say they're a bit worse. But I'm going to say that ultimately Love comes out as their MVP, so I'm going to say Jordan Love as the MVP.
Now, Mags, I can see what name you put on the show sheet, and I kind of feel that you stole my name here, dude. So I feel like I should go before you. And
crack on if you want.
No, go on, mate. Mags, go on. The same question to you, mate. And who's my MVP for the season?
So we both agreed on the MVP. Well, so mine is kind of like, I kind of agree. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to move on and go disappoint some other team. And I think because of that, we're going to have Jordan Love throwing him the ball. Packers will probably do a little bit worse, and they'll be kind of working from behind in games more often than not. And that's why I think long sort of downhill throwing, lots of throwing the ball, Christian Watson should come up big for that team. Probably is a better season than his first one, just because they'll be playing from behind a bit more and throwing the ball a bit more if Aaron Rodgers leaves. I'm not sure what's going to happen if he stays, though.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of agreed here. I've gone, I think he goes, and I think Love's in charge, and I think they do a bit worse. But I'm going to change it because you've gone for Christian Watson, and I'm going to say AJ Dillon is the MVP or Quadzilla, as he's also known as, So I think Jordan Love will be, have it, and rely on Quadzilla to get him out of a pickle all the time. So, nice. But yeah, so let's have a look at the other teams in this division, shall we? And I was super nice to my co-hosts, so we're going to go over to the Vikings, who finished the season on 13-4. And Hannah, I was so kind to you, and I gave you this awesome team to talk about. So, what do you think of the Viking season?
Oh, what a fabulous season for them. No, to be fair to them, look, they did have a great regular season record, right? I mean, you cannot deny them that. Yeah. And this was with a new head coach. So, ultimately the team was in transition because they'd moved on to a new kind of coaching staff. So, look, we cannot knock them at all for the record that they had in the regular season. And I think we discussed this pretty much every week during the season. I just couldn't quite figure out whether I thought that they were good or not. They kept winning all of these games. I was like, are they really good? I think ultimately that playoff game did expose them, as not being quite as good as their regular season record maybe said it was. I mean, I think, again, we heard all of this in these discussions in the regular season, right? They won the most one-score games in a season, so they won all 11 of their one-score games, which, you got to question, is this because they are good, or is this kind of the ball bounced their way, lucky kind of thing? And I do think there's certainly some element of luck in there. They only lost 4 regular season games, but 3 of those 4 losses were complete blowouts. So in week 2, they lost 24-7 to Philly, week 11, 40-3 to Dallas, and week 17, 41-17. So, really, really bad losses when they did lose. Their DVOA wasn't great either. So on offense, they were 20th, and on defense, they were 27th. So, on the surface, they looked like this great team. Obviously, they won the division. But when you dig in a little bit deeper, the stats, I don't think quite show out on that. So I think luck did play a massive part in their season. And as I say, ultimately, the Giants beat them in the wildcard playoff game. And we saw what happened to them in the divisional game. So, I think they were exposed a bit. But there were certainly some good things. I think that the trade for TJ Hockenson was actually really great for them, especially in the season, because he basically became their wide receiver too, didn't he? Thielen, unfortunately, is getting up there in age, and I don't think he's quite got what he once had. He's beginning to show his age a bit. And I do think Zadarius Smith was a really great pickup for them as well. He played really great for them on the D-line. And of course, how can we not mention Justin Jefferson, offensive player of the year? He's just continued to show why he is the best wide receiver in the league, right? So, he has been a massive part of this team and why they are doing so well. So, of course, he has to get a mention. So I think it was a mixed season, really. As I say, on the surface, it looked really great, 13-4. You can't knock for them for that. But I think they weren't quite as good as their kind of record showed in the end.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I was when I was giving the teams out and working on the show sheet, I was kind of like thinking, what would I say if I had the Vikings and stuff? And I think I was going to say very similar. I think the results don't reflect the season we've seen. I don't think they looked like a team that were 13-4 and dominant and pushing for the number 1 seed in the NFC and stuff like that. And I think you're exactly right with that wild card game. I think their true colours came through, and they look like the team that we should have seen all season. So I'm interested to see how it pans out for them next season. And I will agree that TJ Hawkinson trade was, it's got to be up there with one of the best trades of the season. And I'm excited to see how he gets on playing a whole season there in that team. It's going to be an incredible watch. But Liam, have you got any thoughts on the Vikings and their season?
I don't know, Paul. Let me just put on my thinking hat for a second. I also don't know whether you saw, Paul, but I got a bit cold, so I had to put on my vintage Packers jumper as well, just for you, because I know you don't like us wearing our own team colours, even though you've got your hoodie on. So
I'm all for your own team colours, mate, but just get that cheese off your head.
Now with the thinking hat on, though, I can't take it off.
For the people that are not watching the stream and listening, Liam has put a cheese block on his head like a true Packers fan. Oh, bless.
Yeah. And you're going to have to stare at this for the next 30 minutes as well, because it's my thinking hat. It's how I do things.
and now you've got to sit there and talk about one of your biggest rivals and tell me how good they were this season, you know?
Liam, before we move on, did you borrow that from Sauce Gardner?
Hey, I see how it is. I see how it is. You got the Patriots. You got the Patriots knock right at the start that you swooped in on so early, and now it's the Jets. So I see how
it's just I'll let Paul distract you, and I kind of am chipping in, but I'm sad that you noticed.
Yeah, I see where your game is, but Paul, you said that I was going to talk good about the Vikings. I'm not. As Hannah said, you're not going to get a Packers fan to come on and start praising the Vikings. That's not how it's going to work. So, as Hannah said, 11-0 in one-score games. It's just luck. I mean, you kind of expect that to be 50-50. If it's a 75%, 25% split, okay, you got a bit lucky, but you can put that down to skill. 100 to 0 in terms of wins, losses. Just never is going to be purely based on skill. So, that is a massive thing. Then when you dive deeper into the yards in the background, total team yards against the defense, they ranked 31st. They gave up the second most total yard. You split it down into yards per play on defense. They're still 30th. Like these numbers, I'm not making them up. Go over to Pro Football Reference. That's where I get these stats. But they did well in turnovers. They were 10th in turnovers. So that was a good part. But apart from that, their yards weren't great. Their rush D, they were 22nd, so about average, just a bit lower than average. Better than the Packers. I'm not gonna sit here and say that the Packers were great, because they weren't. But the Packers do pip them a little bit in most of these categories. That's why I picked them. Then in pass defense, net yards per attempt, Vikings 30th again. And a lot of these stats, I'm going to ruin a little bit of what I've got planned for later. But a lot of these stats, the two teams below them are the Bears and the Lions. So it shows how bad this whole division was in terms of defense. You look at the offense, again, they weren't everything. They were 13th in yards per play on offense. That was with 5.5, tied with the Packers that were one spot ahead of them. You had 23rd in turnovers on offense, which sounds bad, but when you put into context that between the 8th spot, which was the Carolina Panthers, I believe it was, and the 29th spot, which was the Saints, the difference in turnovers were 4. It was 21 at 8th to 25 at 25 at 29th. So in terms of their season, I think they overachieved for what they were. You dive into the stats a bit deeper, they were average in most stats at best. But I think a lot of it comes down to guys like Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. That trade was great for them. He didn't lose a step switching between the two NFC North teams. And I just think that they're going to regress a little bit next year. That's the thinking hat, mate.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It works for you. Works for you. It's a bit cheesy, but it works for you.
Hey, he's been sat there on that joke since I put it on.
100%. I thought, is this my moment? Is it? But no, let's get into what the Vikings can maybe do to help improve and maybe solidify the top spot in this division. Hannah, what would you think that they need to do to improve a little bit?
Well, Liam stole all of my stats. But basically, my number one is defense. So obviously, Liam said it all. You know, they were pretty terrible, to be honest. So they need to do something with that defense. But we know that in steps Brian Flores, their new defensive coordinator. We haven't discussed it particularly, but I quite like Brian Flores. I think he kind of got a bit screwed over in Miami, to be honest. So I think this could be a really great signing for them, to be honest. And hopefully he'll be able to start turning things around. I do think they do need to do a bit of work kind of in the personnel on that side of the ball. The cornerback room, they've only got 3 currently on the roster as it stands, and all of those are pretty young. I think Dance, LaBooth and Evans. So I think they might need to start looking at some veterans. Obviously, they did have Patrick Peterson. He's getting pretty old now, so I wonder whether they start looking elsewhere for some other kind of veteran cornerbacks. They need to look at the wide receiver room, I think, at this stage. You know, Thielen has been great for them. You know, he's a brilliant story, undrafted guy, but I think his kind of time as a wide receiver too is kind of coming to an end. And Osborne has been good, you know, but I'm not sure that he hasn't particularly stepped into that wide receiver 2 role. So I think they need to start shopping for wide receivers a bit and kind of refill that wide receiver room. And I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the running back room as well, because obviously Cook, he is still there, but they could move on from him this year. That'd save them $8 million on the cap. And obviously Madison's currently a free agent. Like, Cook did okay. Like, he is a really great running back. You know, we can't deny that he's been great. But again, I think he's starting to slow down a bit. I wouldn't kind of be against them starting to look at getting a bit younger there again. So there's a few things they need to do. At some point, I guess we need to discuss Kirk Cousins, but I think that probably is going to be a next season thing. I think they probably stick with him this season and then kind of start shopping elsewhere. I don't think he's the answer for them. I think they know that, especially the way they did his contract. But I think they will keep him this season because I don't know where they're going to get another QB from this season, and then we see where we are next. So that's kind of my thoughts on them for this off season.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with the Kirk Cousins thing as well, because I think there's so many teams that there's so many question marks at QB. I don't think it's the right time to maybe move and look for another QB, because I think you won't get one in the draft that's any better than Kirk Cousins. And if you're shopping around, so I agree. I think they keep Kirk Cousins for at least another year. But let's have a quick prediction for this one. The Vikings, do they improve on their record? And who is the MVP for 2023 of the Vikings? Liam, let's go to you first.
I think we're going all 4. I'm going to put a prediction out here right now. All 4 of us are going to say no to the improvement. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to improve on a 13-4 record. Look at how many teams did better than 13-4 this season. 1, which was the Eagles. I don't think another team, maybe the Chiefs. I'm blanking on their record this year, but maybe the Chiefs also did.
Oh,
it's very difficult to get better than.
Don't give them an excuse to mention the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I've got to try and build this bridge because he keeps coming at me. I've got to try and build this bridge now, Max.
Thank you, yeah. Liam. May I say your hat is lovely, by the way.
Thank you. The bridge has been built, mate. But
yes.
I don't think that they're improving on their record, and I think it's very difficult not to say Justin Jefferson as the MVP. Who else are you going to say on that team that is guaranteed to be there next year?
Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with Liam. You know, I don't see how they can in any way get better. And how can't you say Justin Jefferson, right? Offensive Player of the Year. You know, you got to go with him.
Mads?
Yeah, completely agree. Definitely worse. And yeah, you can't not say Justin Jefferson, right, Paul?
You can, because I've just tried to mix it up, and you're all. I don't want to sit here and go, "Oh yeah, worse, Justin Jefferson." Next, so I tried to mix it up, and I went, "Do you know what, TJ Hawkinson? TJ Hawkinson is going to have a Travis Kelce like year and just dominate, and you're all going to go, whoa."
Nah.
Just trying to mix it up a bit, but
So we know who Paul's taking in fantasy drafts this year.
yeah, that's why I'm not doing any. See?
Mate, it's still February. You've got plenty of time.
And I've got too many leagues. Mags, let's get over to you. I give you the Wildcard Rewind team, and that is the Detroit Lions. So what do you make of our favorite team in this division?
Yeah, it is whenever we started doing this podcast, like every week we were like, what's game of the week? It's like, got to be the Lions game, right? This team are in so many awesome games. Like, they always run teams close. They play fun, fast-paced football, and they always give people a real tough go over. And it's because they're, absolute, like, just dogs, right? There's just a team full of young, hungry players. They've got a head coach that, obviously promotes, we said that word, grit all the time on the show, right? And it's just, they got Aiden Hutchinson, they got Kirby Joseph, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston. They're all rookies just coming into their second year. But they got Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jeff Okudah. They got even Jameson Williams, who we never really seen. It's a really, really young team that has got so much promise. And you look at like the run game that they've set up with DeAndre Swift, who, people kind of bash on DeAndre Swift a bit, but he is so much fun to watch. And paired with Jamal Williams, I don't know if they've re-signed Jamal Williams, but I presume they will, because like he just broke did he not break Barry Sanders' touchdown record? And Liam, you're shaking your head. They've not re-signed Jamal Williams?
No, they haven't, not yet.
I think eventually you'd think he will end up back on that team, but that's certainly what I would do. It depends how much he's asking for, I suppose. You compare all that young talent with one of the best O-lines in football right now, led by obviously Penei Sewell. They've got so many ticks. You look across the team, it's like tick, 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 tick. And like we said, all led by, Dan Campbell, who's, a great coach, but he has one of those X factors that we don't really talk about a lot. That guy seems like a really good leader, right? A guy that you can really get behind and be like, yeah, I'll play for you. So I think Dan Campbell's really the perfect guy for the job there over in Detroit. And they ended the season. Obviously they finished 9-8. They ended the season 8-2. They went on a real hot streak to end the year. And they're going to start next season on fire. And they're going to be really hard to beat because they're young. They're hungry. They've got 2 first-round picks coming up. Yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing at the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, who is their last game of the season against?
Can't remember, mate.
Liam?
Max, I built this bridge. And you're already tearing it down. It's not.
I said I can't remember. I do remember, but
I expect this from Paul, but not from you, Max. Come on.
Yeah. Anything to add on the Detroit Lions, Liam?
Yeah, apart from the Packers losing a win-in situation for the playoffs in Week 18, that was a tough watch. I can't disagree with everything you said. They've got 2 first-round picks. One is 6th overall, one is 18th, and then they've also got 2 second-round picks and a 3rd-round pick. So they've got 5 draft picks in their first 3 rounds. I think that's quite. And 2 of them 4 of them are in the top 2 rounds. That is a dream scenario for any team that has just made it into the playoffs. I need to talk about Jamal Williams because he's my favorite Packer of all time. Just from a personality point of view, his interviews are incredible. He's just a personality, and I'd just spend 5 minutes around him. That would be a dream come true. But for him to break the Barry Sanders touchdown record, he's going to be asking for a lot of money. That's why I don't think he's going to be in Detroit this year. because he's going to be saying, look, I've just broken this record, pay me like I've just done it. And it's quite tough to do that. Their defense started to come into it a little bit. It was a meme by the end of the season that the Lions had the best offense, or one of the best offenses in the league, and then also had one of the worst defenses in the league. And that's why they were playing such big games, because they were scoring 30, 40 points nearly every week, but also letting up that many points. It was quite difficult. Hannah, I won't take too many stats away from you this time. But the good thing that you can see from the Lions is they had a good sack percentage, so 6.5%. So that's how many dropbacks compared to how many sacks they had. So that was average, but you kind of expect Aiden Hutchinson and these extra draft picks to help with that as well. You saw Liam McNeil come into it a little bit more during the season as well. And I think when that coverage starts to help, or will help out that defensive line, and you'll see a lot more sacks and potentially even turnovers, because that was something that they struggled with as well. They weren't very good on turnovers. They were about mediocre 18th.
Yeah. It's, I look forward to seeing what happens with the Lions next year. It's as they win the division, you know. Mags, have we got anything to that they can do to improve?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we talked about how young that team is, and obviously with that comes the caveat that there are lots of gaps. Jared Goff, for how well he's played and how well he's done, a lot of his best games have come, in perfect weather conditions or in a dome. He's kind of historically bad whenever the weather isn't great, so they've got a real kind of issue there. And I think if I know that, then the other teams in the NFL know that, so they're going to kind of ram that down their throat whenever the weather isn't great. There's obviously that gap at tight end. We talked about TJ.
They played at Lambeau, didn't they, at the last game of the season, right?
I'm not commenting, Hannah, because I'm building bridges.
Sorry.
Hannah, I'm going to start taking some more stats. Right, Max wants to let me
get more stats down. Yeah. I think, they've got a gaping gap there at tight end, obviously. Even though they had that guy, I can't remember his name, Zelinstra. Did he not score like 3 touchdowns in one game? What's his name?
I know who you say. I can't pronounce it, but you are very close.
Yeah, that guy. But I don't think he's the starter going forward. But yeah, they've got pick 6 and pick 18. They could be super, super, super lucky here. If teams start playing quarterback roulette with, Young and Stroud and Levis and potentially Anthony Richardson as well, they could end up having someone like Carter or Anderson or Tyree Wilson fall to them at pick 6 and then get an absolute monster on their side to go along with these young players that they already have, and then, probably get another corner at pick 18 as well. They're going to be better coming out of this draft by a considerable margin than they were going into it, and they're already really good going into it. So I think it's really exciting times for the Lions. I think if you're a Lions fan, it's a good time to be, because I think that they're going to, I'll not spoil too much, but I think they're just going to go from strength to strength.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to disagree with you, Max, because you're such a smart guy.
Thank you, Paul.
But before we get on to the fourth team in this division, let's make some quick predictions. Liam, do you think that the Detroit Lions improve on their record next year, and who do you think will be the Lions MVP?
This is the toughest team in the division to try and pick, because they were average, but you can see it going both ways. You can see them regressing, or you can see them taking that extra step. I think they are going to do better, and I can see them winning this division if Rodgers moves on. Paul, if Rodgers stays, I don't think they win the division. The only thing I did want to say is, Mags, I understand knocking Goff for the cold weather, but when he plays in a dome for 8 or 9 games of the season, depending on which year it is, I don't think you could really knock him for it, because he's got guaranteed half of his games in there. And then the other part is how many away games are actually going to be in December and November, maybe, when winter starts kicking in. So last year you saw 4 or 5 games that were under 10 degrees. And we're talking English Celsius degrees, not the weird Fahrenheit that the Americans tend to use. But if you're looking at under 10, you had 5 games. If you're looking at under or 0 or under, then you're looking at 2 or 3. It just depends on how many away games happen in end of November, start of December. MVP is a very difficult one for this team because it could go to so many people. And I'm probably going to shock a lot of listeners and probably all 3 of the hosts today. And I'm going to go with Jameson Williams.
The show sheet. Who is my pick on the show sheet?
I haven't looked at your show sheet, mate. I just immediately, if I saw Paul had written it, I'd ignored it because it's wrong. But this is the only thing that I'm going to agree with you, actually. I didn't realize you'd done it, but Jameson Williams, I loved him coming out in rookie drafts in fantasy. He had 3 touches this season, including one that went for that was brought back on a penalty, and all of those went for 40 yards or more. I don't think that he's going to be just that, but I think that he's got such a high ceiling. And now that I've annoyed Paul to the point where he's scowling at me on the screen, I'm just going to leave you to it now, Paul.
Nope, you haven't annoyed me. If anything, it made me feel better because you thought you were going to shock us all by stealing mine. But Hannah, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think they're going to get better. Like you say, Jameson Williams, he's that extra season now off his injury. I think he's going to sit into this offense really nicely. Hopefully they'll get some new rookies in to get that defense kind of a bit more shored up. So I'm going to say they're going to do better. And I wanted to say Hutchinson, but I see that Mags has gone for that. So I'm going to say Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice.
Love it. Mags?
Yeah, I went for Ian Hutchinson. I think that guy's just special talent. I think he can be seen as the MVP next year. Not only do I think they're going to do better, I think they're going to win the division next year. I think they'll come top of that division. I think they're looking really strong.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same as you, Liam. To be honest, pretty similar. I think if Love's there, I think they have a good chance of topping this division. And I did say that Jameson Williams would be the MVP. But
why are you copying me, Paul?
Well, that's true. But I'm the host, so it's I can do what I want,
you need a thinking hat, mate.
Yeah, I do need a thinking hat. I don't know if they do a Arizona Cardinals bird beat crazy thing or something, you know.
I'll find you something by the end of the show.
A little nest, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But we haven't got much time left, so we will get onto the Bears. And I gave myself this one because I was the good host. I'll tell you what was bad about the Bears. I will just fly through it. The O-line was ranked 31st out of 32, so not great. Their weapons, their wide receiver room is very below par with Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Pringle, and Velus Jones. Is that how you say his name? That's not great. Their running backs, David Montgomery is a free agent. And so to me, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what Khalil Herbert. I know, Hannah, you were a fan going into this season with Herbert until he got injured, but it's I'm interested to see what he could do. I was going to ask you guys a quick question about what do you think they do with the 101. So what do you think? Do you think they take the pick? I'll tell you what, do they take the pick or do they trade the pick? Liam, what do you reckon?
Heart and head say trade because that's what the logical thing to do, but this is the Bears, so who knows?
Liam, agree? Mags agreed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're 101 because they're the worst team in the NFL, just like I predicted they would be at the start of the season, which is on record. I think they have to trade out of it though.
You got very lucky then, Mags.
It's good. I had my thinking cap on.
Hannah, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think they trade it out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think unless there's like a massive like offer for Fields that they can't refuse, I think they trade out.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should trade it out, but I kind of think that they're gonna outprice themselves or out. I don't know how to say it, but they'll price themselves out of the market. That's what I'm trying to say. And
the weird thing is, the best chance they might have is the Texans are so stupid they might buy it off them.
I think if they priced themselves out, they'd be stupid to do that. Personally, I think if you're not taking a QB, you should definitely move out of there. It seems a complete waste, not to get some extra assets.
Yeah, I just think they want too much for it. But the good thing I did put about the Bears was Justin Fields' end of good bits.
Yeah.
But before we finish off, quick question: do they improve, and who's their MVP? Liam?
Yes, and Fields.
Hannah?
Yeah, I think they have to, like 3 and 10 is pretty, or whatever. 3 and bazillion is terrible, isn't it? So I think they have to, right? And it has to be Fields. If they're going to do it, it has to be Fields.
Mags?
Yeah, that's kind of. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't or like had the exact same, but I'll go with and Fields definitely.
So yeah, I think it's a full house. Yeah, I think they improve, and I've gone for Khalil Herbert as the MVP.
Hey.
So I'd just like to mix it up. But yeah, so that brings us to the end of the show. Liam, would you like to plug anything or tell the guys where they can find you or where they can get silly cheese hats from?
Well, the cheese hats you can get from the NFL shop. But that's not what I'm here to plug. So you can find me at the FSA Tweets on Twitter. I do a podcast for the At 5 Yard Dynasty. For At 5 Yard Dynasty, a part of the 5 Yard Rush network that Paul is also with, and so is Hannah. Mags, we need to get you on board, and then we've got a full house from this podcast.
I did close the show at your Super Bowl special. I was the headline act.
The head.
Well, there you go. Everyone's got their part in 5 Yard Rush by the sounds.
Not the graveyard shift at all.
And then I also wanted to plug the UKFFC. So for those that don't know, something that myself and Hannah work on. Everyone apart from Hannah actually was there last year. Yes, I'm throwing you under the bus, Hannah. But it's the @_UKFFC on Twitter or @UKFFC on Facebook. It's a fantasy football event for all you UK fantasy football heads. There were 80 people last year attending, raised over £2,000 for the Mind charity. And this year we're hoping to do much bigger and better things for the MPS Society. And that is on the 8th of July. We're also giving away a Scott Fishbowl spot, which ends tomorrow. You have to be a ticket holder tomorrow. So that's 28th of Feb. Get that in. Paul, get your ticket.
Yes. Okay. Stop shouting at me.
Name and shame.
I will go and get my ticket. But yeah, to kind of echo what you said, Liam, the UKFFC was amazing last year. We had a great time, met so many great people. And if I know, Hannah, you weren't there, and I won't rub it in because I believe you had COVID, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And so it was probably a smart thing to stay away. But for anyone that didn't go, that do listen to the show, just go. It was amazing. And it's just a chance just to sit down and chat rubbish with everyone and have some beers. Like, it was a bit like what we do here on a Monday night, But yeah, with that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and follow us all on Twitter @Wildcard Rewind, or head over to our YouTube channel, search for the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast Network, and make sure that you give us a subscribe. Next week, we've got an awesome show. We are looking back at the Combine and seeing all the good things that happened in the Combine. And we shall see you then.
Taking back to the sun.